Hi, it's Warren Huart here. Hope you're doing marvellously well. As ever, please subscribe. Go to producelikeapro.com. You can sign up for the email list and get a whole bunch of free goods. And you can also try out the 14-day free trial of the Academy. We're having a blast there. There's tons of people in there. Great forum, free multi-tracks every single month, and mixed critiques of the multi-tracks. So lots of fun. Anyway, I have been given this beautiful Phoenix Audio, brand new, just to be released, Tilt EQ to try out. So it's a great looking device. I don't pretend to be an electronics expert. Plenty of you out there will correct me, but it looks great. Of course, has a transformer in it, which is also always a good sign. It seems to be pretty multifunctional. What I like about it is you can go between line in and jack in, and the jack would be obviously using a DI. So that's pretty awesome. It looks like you can use it as a DI and come through into another device, but also use this EQ. Now, a tilt EQ is this. You select a point, the tilt EQ, you can either darken it or brighten it. So what does that mean? That means it does this. So it either boosts the top or cuts the top. Boosts the bottom, cuts the bottom. So it just does this. It just tilts on that point. So it's a really nice, gentle way to not mess up the phase and just boost the top and cut the lows. It's a tilt EQ. A lot of old EQs were this way, you know, going back decades. So it's a nice little thing to add to your arsenal. Question is, how does it sound? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it on a guitar. I'm going to use one of Phoenix's own mic pre's. We'll bypass it, listen to the signal flat, and then we'll try the tilt EQ and see what it does. So let's get going. Okay, before we get started, I've been asked a couple of times about this. This I got from Aspen Pittman when we were interviewing him a few weeks ago. It's called a Fatfinger. Basically what it does is it adds extra mass to the headstock. He used to do it so that on the back of a Les Paul or a Strat or whatever, you put this piece of brass on the back of the neck. But that's obviously more difficult to do than basically adding this. And I can move this from one guitar to another. It adds a bit more sustain. I really like what it does. This is a completely clean sound. I mean, you don't, obviously there's no before and after. It's great. It's just simple physics. He adds mass to it, increases the sustain, and there you go. I've been asked about it a lot, so I thought I'd better share what it is. As usual, we're using the Pacifica, so we have a control, so you know what we have. So we've got the Phoenix DRS1R pre here. The amp's actually quite loud, even though it's relatively clean. So I haven't got a huge amount of gain, but you've got it at -30 there. Nothing engaged. There is a high pass if we want it. There's no real super lows on the guitar to really handle that. Let's just take the gain down just a little bit. It's a great sounding pre. It's going through this, the EQ, so the tilt. So in the tilt, we've obviously got the output transformer of this as well. So it's a pretty nice combination. We've got input and output transformer on the mic pre, and then an output transformer on this. So it's adding a lot of weight and a lot of width. A lot of fatness. You know me, any excuse to play some guitar. So let's try out the tilt function. So if I go to 160 here, I can make it brighter. Let's go exaggerate it. Go full left, darker. Nice. It's very... You know I love this. Okay, so that's pretty beautiful. And I think already it's doing what I wanted to do, which is basically adjust the EQ in a very smooth way so it doesn't sound, and excuse my way of explaining this, it doesn't sound EQ'd. Sometimes when I boost and cut EQ, it is really obvious and it doesn't have that transparentness that we like. This is back flat here. Try the bypass. Yeah, pretty flat. Okay, let's tilt it so the mid-range is going to come up. So basically it's now rolling off gently 160 and boosting above 160. There's a part of me that thinks that would be absolutely amazing on acoustic guitars. Before, after, driving my mic pre a little hard, bring the mic pre down a bit. Bring the output up a little bit. Take it off. Let's try something more drastic. Let's go to 800. So we're going to full tilt it now. Take it off. Back onto 800. Let's try the opposite. Should be interesting. This is interesting because on Tuesday's video we did drastic EQ, so now we're kind of doing the same thing. There's a part of me that if I was doing multiple guitar overdubs might take the tilt like at say the 800 and just do a gentle tilt either way. So one guitar maybe fat rakes, and then maybe the highline overdub the other way. And it would just give a little bit of room for each other. So it's a quick, easy way to do some fun stuff. Okay, let's go to 1.6. Full bright. Should be interesting. Let's go full dark. So it's pretty tasty. I mean, on a very clean guitar, it's not as drastic as it would be on a heavily distorted, massive guitar sound. But I'm really digging this nosiness of that. I see some great applications for guitars in particular, at least for me. Like I said, I would probably just use a gentle tilt function either way for guitar overdubs. The 800's kind of nice, and so is the 1.6. Around about 2K on a lot of guitars, I tend to dip out a little bit because it gets a little bit too, there's a lot going on in that area. So I'm not sure if I would use necessarily the 1.6 on the guitars. I might use that on a small snare off to the side. I might use that on, you know, various different things. Cool, so we're going to try it out on the acoustic. I've got the Lewitt 550 between the 12th and 14th fret here. Let's put on the headphones. So the reason why I thought of this was from that 160. So it's a good full sound there. And we're facing here between the 12th and the 14th fret, about 5 inches back, 6. It sounds cool, but it's definitely got a little bit of boom to it. Position is in, and this guitar luckily isn't that boomy. I'm facing it away from the sound hole quite effectively. But let's try going to 160. So we're going to go to 160, and I'm going to, here's flat. It's just full bright. Look at that. Button rattling on the guitar. We talked about this in an earlier video. So that goes the button. That's pretty drastic. Let's back it off a little bit. That's pretty natural. That's nice. All right, let's take it off. Back on. So I'm going to split the difference. Off. Just gets rid of a little bit of that, oh, just a touch. So it's interesting, depending on the sound source, it does, because an acoustic guitar does have that sort of 150 and below mud on it that I usually pull out. 160 on this is pretty special, and I'm not having to do too much. I'm only doing a couple of clicks towards the bright. So here it is. Controlling those super lows really well. Take it, put it into bypass. That's still a good tone, but it's just a little So my suspicions were correct. That 160 with acoustic guitar is going to be pretty awesome. And it doesn't have that harshness of just this, 6 or 12 dB slope at, 60, 120, 150, whatever it is, 100. It's a nice 160, so it's just literally tilting and boosting everything 160 gently and rolling 160 off. So, very natural sounding way to EQ something. And of course, you've got an output transformer on that as well, so you've got a bit more warmth. Nice tool. For a guy like me that likes these kind of subtlety things, that's pretty useful and a great frequency selection for acoustic. Fantastic. Okay, so got my Mexican jazz bass. No PVT 40 today, Mexican jazz bass. And I'm just cheating. I've gone jack in. Now, for those of you that are not English, we say jack as opposed to, instrument or something. We'll just say, can you pass us the jack? And that's just what we call the 1/4-inch jack here. So I haven't heard many Americans say that, but if you're confused as to what that is, that's what that is. So the jack input plugged in. We're not using the mic pre. We decided to see what it was like if we just went directly into it. Hey. So pretty good output. Maybe a touch more. Pretty good level. So I'm going to go to 160 and I'm going to darken it just so it's a little bit more bass friendly. It's pretty nice. It's warm. For those of you paying attention, yes, I do have the Fatfinger on the end of this one too. So it's probably adding a little bit to the sustain, but regardless, it's got that natural kind of transformers helping out. So I like it. So that's with it darkened a little bit. Let's darken it maximum. Let's go to 800. It's maximum dark. So I've got about pretty safe level of recording level there, but that's the maximum I'm going to get without clipping the internal unit. As you can tell, occasionally the transient's clipping. So if you wanted a bit more output, you could go into a pre after this. We could have gone into here, but we wanted to hear what it sounds like just using it on its own. So it's a pretty nice DI. That's the Tilt EQ at 1.6, full dark. I would never do this, but let's go to full bright. We'd never do this on a bass tone, but let's at least see what it's like. Ah. Well, we can tell it's working. So as you can tell, it's tilting from 1.6 like this. It's pretty tasty. If I go back to the 160 and I go dark a little bit on there, bypass, darken it even more, bypass, dark, printing a much more rounded DI tone. I like this a lot. So for me, I think I could see this on acoustic guitars, as I was saying earlier, being really super useful. I would go to the 160 and I would do a gentle brightening of it. So it would be like a nice gentle way to produce a high pass without it being too, because what this effectively is a high or a low pass filter, if you like, but it's tilting. So it's boosting and cutting at the same time. So it's not just rolling it off at one place, it's boosting it gently and cutting it gently. So we're doing this kind of movement. It's a nice idea. It's probably a more musical way of, you know, high passing and boosting top end, or low passing and boosting low end, without it being too obviously EQ'd. I know that sounds like a stupid thing to say, but I hate it when I hear the EQ too much. Especially on cheaper EQ units, when you boost or cut it, you tend to hear like almost like a cloud of something over it. I'm sure you've all experienced it. So on dark, on 160, it's nice. But to me, I'd probably go bright on 160 with an acoustic guitar, brighten it up until the lows are rolling off and the top, everything above that's going nicely, or even go as high as 800 and just boost it ever so lightly on the acoustic, you know, so it's just tilting there, or 1.6. It seems like, to me, a very nice and easy way to get a signal in that's going to be a lot closer to what you want without doing drastic EQ moves, which I said is funny because if the video we just put up is called drastic EQ. Anyway, a nice little device. As ever, please go to producelikeapro.com, sign up for the email list. There's a bunch of free stuff, some extra videos, you can download the samples, etc., and you could also try out the 14-day free trial of the Academy. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing.